Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guest and I, we wind up watching a movie from my obscenely large, obnoxious watch list. And it could be anything and everything. And joining me for this episode is the fearless leader of the SPDM Crew, Mike Hilty.
Hoi hoi. Hello. How's it going?
Arr, boy, matey. But we are going to be talking about a 2011, 2001 release, Dinner with Friends. And to give a little background here, this was released August 11th, 2001, had a runtime of 94 minutes, and debuted on HBO because it was an HBO original film. Now, how this wound up on my watch list because it was directed by Norman Jewison, the director of Feather on the Roof and Moonstruck. So very interesting career for him. And this stars Dennis Quaid, Andy McDowell, Greg Kinnear, and Tony Collette. Based on play by Donald Margulies, this was nominated for 2 Emmys, including Outstanding Made for Television Movie. And our little synopsis here, two married couples have their 12-year bond of friendship put to the test when one couple reveals that they're splitting up. But Mike, what are your general thoughts on Dinner with Friends? Do you enjoy it? Do you regularly do it?
This is tough for me to analyze a little bit because at the very core of this, these two couples suck. They do, but also just they represent two like darker timelines when it comes to marriage, right? So
Mhm.
you've got you've got one couple who it's Gabe and Karen, right? So
Yes.
they're kind of chugging along, going through the motions. It's even more than that because they like to put on a good show that like they're cultured, they go to Italy, they do all these things together. They bigger and fight a lot. And
Mhm.
like you're like, what's really here, right? Like what's keeping these two together? But then you have, Tom and Beth on the other side of
Yes.
this, right? Where they are ostensibly two people who probably shouldn't have been together because they're so different. Because like this is where this movie, like if this movie were to be called like instead gaslighting and better communication skills, that probably would be a better representation of what this movie actually is
Yep.
that these like Tom and Beth, they're driven by different things. They both want different things out of relationships. Um, and like for them, like for it to take like 12 years for them to figure out that they're not compatible and they're not right for each other is kind of staggering, but also it makes sense considering like the trajectory that their marriage goes in, and it probably happens more often than we think. So most like a lot of these characters are not likable, but also you get it because I think deep down inside, I think why this movie hit me so much is because all of us who are married know both of these couples. We know them. And that's disheartening and it sucks, but also it is just the nature of marriage for some people because there's plenty of people out there who as I get on my soapbox and be like, I'm the shining example of marriage. But all of this to say that there is just there we all know couples like this
Mhm.
out there who there's one couple who is just it's a facade. It all feels like not fake, but it just feels rehearsed and manufactured and like dressed up a lot. But then those people are like, I don't know about you two. Like I really don't. Like even when you get into the second act and you see like their or like Tom and Beth's origin and how like they met, it's like how did we get from this to
Marriage.
marriage is what keep brings us together today. So I don't know. There are lots of complicated feelings about this one.
This film is so interesting because I think Norman Jewison brings maturity to this. Because, like, this is not some, hot, steamy romance that goes awry and they get back together. No, this is about mature relationships that have been in place for a long time, for better, for worse.
Hmm.
And whether it's romantic or platonic, this film navigates the evolving nature of people and relationships and how we can drift apart and maybe reconnect at some point, or maybe, that purpose of that person in your life has run its course.
Hmm.
And this film, obviously, you get the feeling of a play because it's told in these basically these three chunks, and it's very enclosed in these homes of, whether it's, you know, Gabe and Karen's home with this dinner party, and then them on vacation, and then at the end with these two separate meals between the two male characters and two female characters, and then Gabe and Karen reconvening to commentate on it. And it is challenging because, yeah, these couples, I think Annie McDowell plays a nagger so perfectly. And like, I feel bad because, like, it winds up like I don't like her whole lot in movies. And I think it's because she plays so many characters that are so unlikable and push your buttons. And like, she is so aggressive about like jumping on Beth's side and just absolutely crucifying Tom without any, like, she's like that friend who's just like, I'll go, like, I'll mess your ex-boyfriend up, or like doing all these types of things, but also she never seems happy.
No, she that's where Beth kind of calling her out at the end kind of that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me the most
Yeah.
is that I don't think Beth would have done that if she would have stayed with Tom. Because
No.
like I think being with David has given Beth a little bit like like a little bit of a bump in confidence and a little bit of a little bit uh, more courage to kind of be direct and talk with Karen in a way that's like, hey, I think you like showing people just how superior you feel over them, especially when their lives are a mess. And I don't know, like Karen doesn't really take it that well, but she also doesn't deny it either.
He's also like, my friend is calling me out for being a bad person, but maybe he's the bad person. And it's that like one Simpsons meme where it's just like, but maybe I'm not the problem. Like,
No,
Karen's a problem.
no, it's them. It's totally them.
And she's so miserable, and it just feels like she feeds off of misery. And Gabe, like, Dennis Quaid is the perfect actor to play this character because he seems like such a stereotypical dude. And he goes through his process, and like, he doesn't seem particularly happy in his marriage either. But it's all about like, you're not following the rules, you're not following what's supposed to happen. And it's just like, he's so worried about the performative nature of his relationship to even like open up and connect with his friend. And like, Greg Kinnear's Tom is a smacked ass, and Greg Kinnear plays a smacked ass so well. Like he he's not happy.
No,
Tony Collette's Beth is not happy, and they shouldn't be together.
right.
And yet, from that scene where they meet, seems so volatile from the start. I'm just like, there's already these tensions and stuff like that this early on. I don't know if this is something you should move forward with.
Well, even the fight that Tom and Beth have when he comes back from his, trip where his flight got canceled and, things like that.
Yeah,
Uh, that fight was like super uncomfortable and it just feels reminiscent of just like this is probably a fight that they have all the time where,
that contempt.
on one end, he is so Tom's grilling Beth about like what he, just everything that she talked about at this dinner party. It just feels like he's just trying to like lawyer her in some way to try to like get her into a trap, and it works, unfortunately, because he's savvy and he picks it up. But just the way that he reacts, it's like he's like, you like we were gonna tell them together so that we could present the whole story. Like, doesn't that just feel like somebody who's like pretty guilty or feels pretty guilty about it, knowing that
Somebody
he's
who's
the
worried
one.
about being judged
Yeah.
for their
And
actions.
that is, I think that's the whole thing about this movie slash play, because it does feel very much like a play, is that this is just as much about the evolution of marriage as it is just about what you want the outward, like the outside world to view your
Yeah.
marriage, because everybody wants to give off this impression that their marriage is fine, when in reality, let's just call it what it is, because like Shane, you and I are married. Marriage is
Yep.
hard. Marriage is
Yep.
really hard. And that doesn't change the fact that you have your ups, you have your downs,
Hmm.
and that it's it gets uncomfortable at times. When you throw things like pets, kids, jobs, hobbies, everything like that, it just the balancing act that you have to do in order to keep a marriage okay is really, really hard. Which is why this movie slash play to me just proves that, look, we need to take a test in order to get our license. We have to have a 5-day waiting period in order to buy a gun. I don't know. I feel like we should have to take a test a little bit. Like, and I get it. The marriage is tested all the time. Like before you get married, it's just called being in a relationship, right? But I feel like you need to take a written test about,
And
are
there's
you even ready to get married? It's the same thing with college. It's like, are you actually like mentally ready to go to college? Because if not, you shouldn't go. Plain and simple. And if you're not mentally ready for what what it takes to actually like be in a marriage, you shouldn't do it. Plain and simple.
absolutely, and you know, Tom and Beth should never have gotten married.
No, no,
And
they
we see their dynamic and there's this tension, but at that point it's that type of any type of tension between a man and a woman, or two women attracted to each other, two men attracted to each other. All that tension is going to turn into sexual tension eventually.
eventually,
Um,
yeah.
because there's a fire there at the beginning. But when that fire burns out, then you just got contempt
Hmm.
and disagreement and a lack of compromise. Neither of these couples really want to compromise.
Real talk. Do you think Gabe and Karen, how much longer do you think they lasted? Or do you think that they'd still be together
I think they're
after this
that
movie?
type of couple that will be there forever, but they should be.
Yep. I would agree. I
They're
think
like,
they would be.
look how bad their relationships are. Their relationships are bad. Our relationship isn't bad. I'm like, mm,
Okay.
mm.
Okay, buddy. That's if you say so.
Okay, Karen. And I think the four of these actors give really strong performances,
Mhm.
and that really work. And you know, I love Toni Collette. Just watched a couple of her early Australian films for the retrospective with Jess, and like Greg Kinnear, I have seen play this particular type of character, and the way you see them at the end, and this is exactly why they should have listened to the whole story. Like Beth had cheated, and been involved with this lawyer from work that Tom works with for a long time. Like they had been together for a spell, and then they gotten back together, and that gives a whole different type of context of infidelity on Beth's part, and that it wasn't just Tom the big bad guy. And I'm not
Mhm.
trying to defend Tom because he does a lot of bad things, but he should have been saddled with that
Right.
of all things.
Well, he gets saddled from that specifically from Karen. Gabe, at least, and this is where people taking the side of the people that they know, like almost blindly, that's like that's not great either. You have to be at least somewhat objective. And yeah, I get it. Knee-jerk reaction in terms of the truth. Yeah, that's it's not a great look for Tom. Um, but that's that's what happens in with breakups, right? Like
Yeah,
any type of breakup, whether it's, high school, college, or a marriage, is that there's such a competition to win the breakup, and like the awkward position that friends get put in when people do break up. And it sucks, but also at the same time, you're just more inclined to like believe the people that you're friends with at face value, even though you're never going to hear the whole truth from both of them, because when things are that tense and that bottled up, like you're never going to hear the truth because it's from their own perspective and how they feel about that.
yeah,
Because because one thing that we know about people, they're very introspective, especially in times of heightened emotion, right? Yeah.
absolutely. And this is one of those things where Gabe realizes later in this film that he doesn't really like Tom as a friend anymore. They've grown apart. And Karen and Beth feel the same way. But Gabe and Karen won't realize that they've drifted apart
Hmm.
because it's a different context and there's this commitment to marriage
Hmm.
that's different than just a friendship. And
Well.
I've had I don't think I've ever had breakups where people had to choose a side from like a friend perspective, but I've had breakups with friends,
Hmm.
part of a group where people have had to make choices, and it puts everybody in a weird situation.
Well, but not only that, my wife and I have had friends that like we didn't like break up with them, we just drifted apart. And
Yeah,
like that's
that
that
happens.
also is just another part of being being in a relationship, particularly like the layers of relationships in this. There's the marriage relationships, the friend relationship, and then there's the quartet of all four of them. And I think what Gabe was talking about uh, with Tom when they had dinner together or lunch or whatever, when he's talking about how like his breakup and with or with Tom's breakup with Beth, and what he says about like I'm not sure like any of that was real, or like that's what I wanted. And how Gabe just kind of is so taken aback. It's like, are you saying that like we made you, like we were part of this just fake facade that you were putting on? Like I can understand why Gabe was so hurt by that, but also at the same time, Tom does seem happier that he
Yeah,
doesn't have to put up with, all this crap as much anymore. Where it almost lost me with Tom is Tom like not like dealing with his kids that much. That almost kind of lost me a little bit, but also he does seem genuinely happy with his stewardess. I mean, travel agent.
Travel agent.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing too, because Tom wrote off his whole entire life as something he didn't want.
Yeah.
And that does include Gabe and Karen.
Yeah.
And Beth is happier being with the guy that she probably wanted to be with from the start.
Hmm. Well, and
And
if you listen to what they both were talking about, just like Tom wants somebody who, it's not it's not complicated, and it's looking like he just wants somebody who kind of just like drags him around and like grabs his ass whenever he feels like it, and like kind of seems a little bit like a sexual predator, but that's fine. Okay, thanks, Greg Kinnear. But it seems
he's a
like
middle-aged dude who wants a younger lady
true. But then
who
Beth,
zest up his life.
yeah, Beth, on the other hand, Beth talking about things like, I want a partner. I want somebody like
Yeah.
what I see is what I get. And it's like, who if I wonder if they had that conversation at any point in like their dating, they probably would realize, oh, we need to break up, but they probably didn't. And that's probably something that a lot of people who have been married and divorced, they figure out pretty quick. It's like, I got to be upfront about the shit I want in a relationship, and
You have
gotta
to
get that, or else before this gets too serious, let's just end this.
and you have to trust that what you're agreeing upon is what they really want
Hmm.
and not, excuses to like, yeah, sure, I we could do that just to, get you to agree.
Hmm.
And those are challenging things. And this film, going back to what I said at the beginning, is it's mature. It takes a different type of vibe with this.
Hmm.
This isn't like haha funny at all. Like there's some humor, but like it's not like this obviously is not a comedy.
No.
This has a lot of dramatic elements and a lot of character conflict. Because you have Gabe and Karen, Gabe and Tom, Karen and Tom, Tom and Beth. So these are very different dynamics. And it's interesting to see them play out on screen.
Yeah. Agreed.
Any final thoughts on Dinner with Friends?
We've talked about this way too much, so no.
This is the type of film that's going to make you sit there and think about your marriage. And it's just like, and are like, are you grateful for your marriage after watching this? Or being like,
Oh, yeah.
I might need to think about some stuff.
The It'd be interesting to do a double feature with this and Closer about,
Mm,
just relationships and how like complicated and messed up they can get. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Same era. Those first half of the aughts exploring that for sure. But Mike, thank you so much for coming on and talking movies with me.
thanks thanks the wheel. Thank the wheel for, you know,
Thank the wheel for
choose
marriage counseling the movie.
yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What is your favorite film about dealing with marriage? And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding. So many different shows with all types of interests, especially movies. If you like movies, we got that for sure. But if you want to be a guest like on a show like this one, or if you have an idea for your own podcast, reach out to us on our website to join the crew. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.